Remember, there's some pretty important information here in the disclaimer. You might want to give the video a quick pause and read it.
Oh, hey everybody, it's me, Sonic the Hedgehog. Just here to remind you that if you haven't already, make sure to hit that like button. And for even more amazing customs, don't forget to subscribe to Wake Angel 2001. Because between you and me, they're way past cool.
Hello everybody, it's Wake Angel 2001, and I know I don't usually do two personal projects in a row, but quite frankly, I feel like I've been run ragged this month, and I tried to work on some figures that, I'm actually getting paid for, but, I just couldn't really muster the energy, and I feel like it would come out as a lower quality, which is not something good for, things that I'm selling for profit. So I figured I can prevent burnout and, help center myself so I can do better next time by finishing up this Uncle Chuck figure that I've been wanting to do for a while. Some people might remember that I actually made this head quite a few weeks ago and just kind of set it aside in hopes of, doing it later. But, I guess because I needed some work, I guess it ended up getting done sooner. Okay, so, can you believe that this is actually the first time I've ever made an action figure of the roboticized form of Uncle Chuck? Like regular Uncle Chuck was one of my first customs ever, but I never got around to making his robot form. Isn't that weird? So let's end that. Let's end that weird not having a robot Uncle Chuck streak today. But first, since this is an iconic classic character from the franchise aside from the video games, it's time to do a quick little recap. So, we were first introduced to good old Uncle Chuck in the Saturday morning cartoon, of course, where, he was basically, roboticized. They could temporarily jog his memory by giving him a power ring, but, he was basically just a worker drone in Dr. Robotnik's, city, along with Sonic's dog, Mutsky, which, is not appearing in this video. Now, I guess I can, he didn't really feature too much in until the episode where they got a de-roboticizer working and temporarily managed to restore Bunny. And of course, the first thing Sonic did was grab his roboticized uncle and bring him back for de-roboticization. So he was actually able to last as a while as Uncle Chuck himself, in the flesh. But it turns out that the de-roboticizer didn't work, and after after a day or so, Bunny's limbs turned back into mechanical parts, and that means that Uncle Chuck, whose entire body was mechanical, would be, fully reverted back into his robotic form, mind conditioning and all. Of course, Sonic, it seems that having tasted his consciousness again, Uncle Chuck was able to fight it off and be restored to... He at least had his conscious mind restored, even if he was still in his robot body. And from that point, he kind of served as a spy, providing valuable intelligence from Robotropolis to the freedom fighters. Very, very important character he became once he had his mind restored. I guess there was also the revelation that Uncle Chuck was the one who built the roboticizer. It was originally supposed to be a medical tool to help people live longer, but it turns out that instead of prolonging life, it just mechanized it, and on top of that, took away their willpower. Anyone who went into a roboticizer was basically turned into a mindless automaton. You're not only turned into a robot, but you're also just turned into a robot who will stand there unless ordered to do something. Of course, Uncle Chuck would also feature in the Archie comic book, where, the continuity that lasted the longest out of anything. And his storyline was mostly the same. He still developed the roboticizer. He still, upon realizing that it turned people into mindless robots, felt such a sense of disgrace that he retired as a as a scientist and became a restaurateur. I guess he figured there was no way he could mess up a chili dog so bad that it would enslave a race of people. Although, there's ways to mess up a chili dog, but no, it won't lead to enslavement of a civilization. And just like in the cartoon, Uncle Chuck would get his mind restored, and he would go on to be a spy in Robotropolis. Of course, he wasn't temporarily de-roboticized. I believe there was a lab experiment gone wrong that restored his consciousness. Now the thing is, he never really got over I guess he eventually did get over his guilt complex, but it was a driving part of his character for quite some time. Even to the point where he had the opportunity to try and de-roboticize himself, but didn't do it. Cause, I guess he felt like as long as other people were still trapped in those robotic shells, then he didn't deserve to have his flesh and blood restored. Of course, after the Ultimate Annihilator went off and destroyed the original Robotnik, all the Robians' minds were freed and blah-de-blah. Yada yada yada. Every aliens turned all the Robians back into flesh and blood people. All except for Sonic's father, of course, but that's going on a different tangent. We're sticking with Uncle Chuck's storyline. So with his flesh and blood restored, Uncle Chuck would actually continue to be a supporting role. He served on the council, the advisory board to the king, and later on, Elias, the king's son, when he took over the mantle. And he was also pivotal in the development of Shard. The reformed Metal Sonic? Yeah, he was the one that used the programming trapped within the crystal matrix of the power gem that he'd been using to, at first, make copies of Metal Sonic that were supposed to serve as an army for Knothole City, and then later on, the actual development of Shard himself. So yeah, that was basically how his storyline went along. Like he was always kind of like a backup tech guy, how Tails is like the mechanical genius in the video games. Well, we also had Rotor and Uncle Chuck fulfilling that role in the comic book. We had a lot of science people, is what I'm getting at. And of course, the comic book isn't the last thing that, because the comic book lasted such a long time, it was the last thing that Uncle Chuck appeared in, but there was another continuity that came out after the comic book started, and that was the Sonic Underground cartoon, where Uncle Chuck actually was a character as well. In his normal flesh and blood form, he looks almost identical to his Saturday morning look, and from what I understand in the wiki, there's a little bit of controversy as to whether he was Sonic's biological uncle in this one. I remember in the Archie comic, he was Jules's brother. He was the brother of Sonic's father. But I can't really seem to verify whether in the Underground continuity, whether he was Alina's brother or her brother-in-law. So, depending on how it goes, this version of Uncle Chuck might not have been Sonic's biological uncle. But, he's still in the family. And, his roboticized form in that show looks really different. Compared to how the roboticized looks were in the comic book and the original cartoon, these roboticized forms look almost Cronenbergian. They're still... they look almost like hodgepodge cyborgs. You can still see parts that look somewhat organic. I don't know, it's really weird. But yeah, that was basically all three continuities that would feature Uncle Chuck as a character. So I guess now it's time for me to actually make that toy. So as I said, I did make a 3D model of Uncle Chuck's head in Tinkercad. I'm actually pretty proud of how it came out, because this is something that I made myself from scratch, just using, all the various tools available in Tinkercad. The only thing that I couldn't make was the spines. I freely admit those spines come from the model that Corey Sonic fan made when he made the Saturday morning Sonic head for me all that time ago. Like I just took the spine model, imported it into Tinkercad, and then shoved it into a ball to be in the right alignment to be Uncle Chuck's spines. I do this because there's really no way to make like a curved cone shape in Tinkercad. Like, I guess if Tinkercad ever comes up with like a warp tool that allows you to distort shapes, then I'll be able to do that there. But yeah, like I would be able to make a cone in Tinkercad, but you can't bend the cone like this. Yeah, but I tried to 3D print it all as one piece, but that caused like the mustache and the nose to become corrupted somehow. So I had to do the thing where I cut the head in half and then stick it together. And of course, I had to use some epoxy to fill in the crack that formed because of this. But as a result, I had an Uncle Chuck head. Anyone who's seen me on, anyone who follows me and supports me on Patreon. Oh, by the way, if you want to support me, please do so. I'm actually losing a couple of supporters, so it'll be really great if I can get a few more supporters. I could really use the extra income. But yeah, like, you know that I've had this head done for weeks and then kind of sidelined it. And the current wave, you know, the one that has Jet the Hawk and Super Silver in it, of the Jakks Pacific toy line has another re-release of Classic Sonic. So I took my old Classic Sonic that I already have and used him as the base figure. For the hands and feet, I modified the glove cuffs. I cut off the sock cuffs and the glove cuffs so that there would only be one loop instead of two. Like, this is all done with an X-Acto knife. I didn't exactly go in and sand and sculpt over too much because, like I said, this was just a simple project that I was just trying to center myself on. I did cut off the buckles on the shoes and sculpt over it smooth because, you know, Uncle Chuck doesn't have buckles on his shoes. Although, yes, I did leave the buckles on in my Saturday Morning Sonic because I just wanted them there as an aesthetic of choice. So, you know, don't at me. And, you know, they have a simple paint job. There's some kind of, like, light metallic-ish brown color for this version of Uncle Chuck for some reason. I'm not sure if that was a lighting thing, but I guess it does make him look a little bit more unique. Like, not just, like, you know, like, I guess it does make him look a little bit more inorganic with this color scheme. Like his hands and feet aren't just like polished white metal. It's like if he was made of bronze or copper, like this is just like the natural color he'd be. Like, I don't know. I'm just grasping at straws here. Like, I'm getting a Tin Man metaphor coming out. And the body was modified almost identically to the way I did the Saturday morning one. I took off the two back spines and sculpted over it. I didn't sand away the pegs that the old spines connected to, so from behind you can kind of see them there under the sculpt. I think it actually helps enhance the look because it looks like more mechanical Greeble back there. So yeah, that's accidental enhancement. I also sculpted on the forearms, like to look like it has the joints going on, and the shoulder pads are sculpted on. I was able to sculpt them in place on this figure because the classic Sonic figure has lower set shoulders, so there's plenty of room there. On a modern Sonic figure, I probably would have gone for the craft foam look because otherwise, like there's much less shoulder on the modern Sonic figure, or rather, I guess his shoulders are higher up. I don't know how to put it. You know what I'm talking about. You can see it. It's hard to describe, but you can see it. So really, that's all the parts, and yeah, all that was left is to reassemble it. Uncle Chuck, complete. So yeah, like, I can't believe it's been this long before I finally got around to making Uncle Chuck in his roboticized form. Like, this is probably the iconic way that a lot of people remember him originally. I mean, yes, technically he spent more time de-roboticized in the comic because it continued on for like 15 years after he was finally de-roboticized, but like, in most of his appearances, we remember him from this robotic look. And of course, he interacts just fine with the existing Saturday morning toys. You can have him commanding SWAT bots, or reuniting with Sonic, giving counsel, or trying to assess the build quality of Bunny's limbs. And, the Sonic line's getting big. Like, I really can't fit a shoulder-to-shoulder picture in a single shot anymore. I need to overlap them a little bit now, so... like, the Sonic the Hedgehog toy line grows. The Saturday morning toy line that I made grows. Okay, I guess that's all I have to say. I guess I'm starting to ramble because I am pretty tired, so I'm gonna leave it at this. Thank you all for watching. This is Wake Angel 2001 signing off.